Good morning. It is Sunday, February 12th, about 9:10 a.m. We're here with Sea Samai, and there you go. Look at her. Sea is a model and very talented, very beautiful, obviously. So
Oh,
let's just jump right in. I met Sea at a meetup or a shooting with some friends many
it
years
was a
ago, I think.
meetup. Yeah.
Yeah, several years ago. And so we've known each other for a few years and done a few shoots together. She still admits she knows me, so that's a good thing. I think. I don't know. I don't know what she says, but um, so C, let's start with just where you're from, where'd you grow up, well, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so hello, my name is C. I was born and raised in a small town in Minnesota. No point in naming it because no one will know what it is.
I didn't
And
know that actually.
yeah, I was born and raised in Minnesota and I moved out to LA, California when I was 15.
Okay.
Um, and yeah,
Wow.
that's all there is to it. Now I live in Long Beach and I love Long Beach.
And what was it like growing up in Minnesota?
Oof. It was definitely looking back at it now, it feels like a fever dream almost. It's like a whole completely different life that I don't even associate myself with anymore.
Uh-huh.
Like I grew up in, it was a very small town. Everybody knew everyone. And I remember I looked up the statistics, like the population of Asian people was literally like 2% out of like the
Wow, okay.
whole population. And of the Asian people that were in like my school, we were all cousins, like the four or five
Uh
Asian people that were at my school.
I actually
And
grew up like that because I my high school class was like 1,071 who had started, and it
oh,
finished at
okay.
about 960 maybe.
Hmm.
Um, and there were literally five Asians or so,
Yeah,
and we all knew each
yeah.
other, you know, and we all knew all the other Asian restaurant owners because we had a restaurant.
Mhm.
So it's
I
funny.
know. I think if I were to graduate there, my graduating class that I grew up with probably had like not even 400 people. It was a
Wow.
very
Okay.
small school.
Okay. And was it culture shock coming to LA?
Oh, 100%, especially living in Long Beach, where it's the biggest population of Cambodians. I'm Cambodian, by the way.
Okay.
Um, the biggest population of Cambodians outside of Cambodia. So I was just like, I came to Long Beach to live in Long Beach, and it was just like, I was like stunned. And I definitely had a bit of an identity crisis when I came here because I grew up, very American, very whitewashed, as people would say. And then I came
Hmm.
to Long Beach and it's just like, there's just a
Okay.
bunch of different types of people.
So, do you want to talk a little bit more about the identity part of it? Because I'm sure people, there are a lot of people like you, and I actually grew up like you,
Mhm.
and and then went and moved somewhere into a different environment entirely. So, how did that go? How'd
Yeah,
you feel about it?
it was definitely not necessarily rough, but it was just kind of me trying to navigate how I can integrate myself into my own community, basically. And when I first moved here, I joined a traditional Cambodian dance academy.
Which I think you
Um,
still do, right?
no, I left, but I'm still close with the people in it and the dance teachers and all that. I still keep in contact with them because the Cambodian community in general is very tight knit. It's a very
Hmm.
tight knit group of people, and it's kind of like everyone knows everybody type of thing as well.
Hmm.
There's like a very strong sense of community within the Cambodian community. So that was how I kind of got integrated into the Cambodian community because, there was like dance performances at Cambodian events, and I really got a network with like different Cambodian artists
Hmm.
and all that. And then at dance class, we spoke Khmer and they taught us a lot about our culture and all that. So that is basically how it helped my identity crisis a lot. And that
Okay, that's great.
helped,
That's really
yeah.
great. Let me ask this. I found when I got to college that it became a bit more politicized. Like people wanted you to be here or there. And I didn't necessarily like sort of, there are people who would say you're more Asian or you're whitewashed, and even Asians would call me. It's kind of quite funny because I thought of myself as relatively Asian, and I grew up in a Chinese restaurant, but even some of the Asians would call me whitewashed and all this kind of stuff. And then,
Mm.
how do you fit in with the non-Asian community and blah blah blah. Did you run into that kind of thing at all?
Uh, kind of when I first joined like the Cambodian dance, I kind of felt like the odd one out because
Mm-hmm.
like I did feel so like I didn't know anything basically. Um, so yeah, I did feel that way, but then eventually I think when you start to really like ground yourself in your own culture, like everyone else around you can kind of see and feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So then they just stop kind of giving you a hard time about that. But it's so annoying when people do that. Like, why
Yeah.
does it matter? It's America. Like, it's like a melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities. So I don't see why for like the label whitewashed and like all that.
Yeah. I thought it was strange because sort of I remember the first day I walked into college, there was some protest going on about, and there were a bunch of Asians outside, and I was like, am I supposed to be there, or those
Yeah.
kinds of things? And I was like,
Uh-huh.
because I know they wanted me to join them, and I was like going into the office they were protesting to take care of some
Mhm.
business. I was like, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about modeling. How did you get into it? Let's.
Yeah. So I don't want to say I did pageants because I only did about three, but I did do a few pageants in high school. And I don't know why I did it. I just did it just to do it. I mean, I grew up watching like toddlers and tiaras and stuff, so I was like, "Ooh, pageants sound fun." And the
Hey, I say
opportunity
why not?
arose.
If you
Yeah,
can, I mean,
exactly.
you can learn a lot from pageants, actually.
Exactly. So I did like three of those, didn't place in any of them, but the experience was really fun and I did learn a lot and I met a lot of like influential or very inspiring women, should I say.
Oh, that's
I
great.
met a
Uh-huh.
lot of inspiring women. And then with the pageants, I remember I like posted photos from the pageants, and then that's when photographers would start reaching out to me on Instagram, like we should test shoot, we should do this. So then I like went into the world of like just test shooting
Uh-huh.
for like a year or two. That's where
Uh-huh.
I met you. I met you
There
at
you
like a
go.
meetup.
I'm glad you
Um,
did. So there you go.
yeah, it
You
was
know?
really fun doing the test shooting, and then it wasn't just about taking photos, it was making connections with photographers because I loved to like take photos too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not very good at it, but I like love
Uh,
photography. I just love photography, you know?
mm-hmm.
So, you know, connecting with photographers and then I got photos out of it and I was just posting a bunch of photos and I was kind of unknowingly like building a modeling portfolio with all of
Mm-hmm.
these test shoots that I was doing with all these photographers. And then it got to a point where my mom was like, "Okay, you're doing all these shoots for free. You're not making any money." She was like, you should start making some money, you know."
Sounds like a very Asian parent thing to say.
Exactly. Um, so yeah, I met up with I had another test shoot and it was at a studio. We were just planning on doing like plain white wall photos. And I was like, hey, while we are already doing this, can you like take my digitals for me? And so he took my digitals, I submitted them to like all the agencies I feel like in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard back from quite a few, and then I signed with Auto
Okay.
Models. And that's
Oh,
how I became signed.
and Otto is located where they're in the OC or
They're
in North
located in
South
OC.
Bay? OC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're located OC, but their jurisdiction is kind of like OC LA
Okay.
area because they're my mother agent. So,
Okay. And how's it been for you? I mean, how do you feel like the journey's been so far?
I mean, Otto has definitely done a great job being my mother agent, kind of developing me
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like, you know, getting me jobs where I really learned a lot because I feel like the biggest thing for modeling is kind of like a learning. You kind of have to learn yourself as you go.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's with everything with life. Like people can give you all the advice they can, but you just need to experience it too to like really get it.
Right.
So they did a great job at, you know, getting me jobs where I could really learn how things work and give me advice to where I could like kind of navigate. where I'm going as a
Okay.
model and all that. So
So was it you did this was the eyelash you were the face of eyelashes. What was the company
yeah,
again?
that was like the biggest, like my first really big job. Lilly Lashes.
Uh-huh.
They work with auto a lot. So they were my very first job actually with auto. And I remember like I was just like a baby model. My rate was like smaller. And that was cool. I got really good experience out of that, and I got some good photos for my portfolio. And then I shot with them again like
Oh, that's
a
great.
year later.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, it was crazy because I did that first shoot, got my first paycheck, nothing of it. And then like 6, 7 months later, I got a second paycheck from them. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why am I getting another paycheck for them? I was like, did they make a mistake? I was like scared because it was a pretty decent paycheck. And I had no idea what it was for. I just said Lily Lashes. Um,
Was it
and
residual or buyout?
yeah, it was a residual, but I didn't know it was
Uh,
a residual
okay.
because then a few weeks later, I have a family friend send me a photo on Instagram. It was like, "Isn't this you?" And it was the Costco box,
Yes.
my face on all the little Costco boxes, and I was like, "That's what the paycheck was for." There you
So
go.
hopefully we will have a photo of that for people who are watching this on YouTube.
Yes,
But if you were in Costco, you probably saw C on that
you
and didn't even
probably
know it.
did.
Yeah,
I
because
know.
I saw the pictures. There's a lot of you there.
There was a
So
lot. It's like every single like the packaging with the actual product, my face is on that. It's like
yeah,
right
some of
there.
you
So
might
people
even have her face at home. Who knows, right? So there you
you
go.
probably did.
So
So yeah.
let's see. What would you say would be the some of the biggest challenges you've seen as a model? Or what are the biggest challenges for a model who is starting out and has some years under her belt and so forth? What have you run into that you thought was challenging?
Okay, the main two things is one, you need to be comfortable with rejection because
Okay,
you're going to be rejected a lot. And two, you can't take it personal. Like, do
right.
not take it personally because, if you're a signed model, you already made it. You're a signed model. That means, your agent thinks you're capable of booking, but there's so many castings. There's clients are looking for a certain look. So if you don't get picked for that job, do not take it personally. That doesn't mean you're ugly or whatever.
Mhm.
It just means you weren't the right fit for that job.
Okay.
And I feel like, especially with TikTok and everything, because, I'm like on TikTok. I love TikTok and Instagram
I've
Reels and
seen.
whatnot. Yeah. I feel as if the modeling has been very glamorized now. They think, once you're signed, you're instantly Bella Hadid, Kendall
Uh-huh.
Jenner status, and you're walking New York Fashion Weeks, but you definitely have to work up to that. You're gonna be rejected hundreds of times. You're gonna go to
Right,
all these
right.
castings. You don't get paid to go to these castings. Those are your own time and,
Hmm.
energy that you're spending in that. And you're gonna 50-50 chance you're gonna be rejected. You're not gonna be chosen for that job. So you just have to be really comfortable with rejection, have like
Actually,
thick
I'd say
skin.
the odds are probably higher than 50 that you'd be rejected. And
Probably.
I say that as an actor that has been rejected many times. So it's
Yeah.
it's like, hey, your odds are uh, you know, um it's there's a lot of people out there.
Hmm.
So you must get tons of questions on your Instagram, TikTok about
Oh,
modeling. So what are the
tons.
most common questions? This is where I get to be like the lazy interviewer and ask you to ask
Yeah.
yourself a question. So
Yeah. Definitely the top one is just how do you get into it?
okay.
Like just like how do you get into it and also what do you think about it? Those are the main two questions. And honestly, I feel it's so much more simpler than people think.
Hmm.
There's two main ways you can get signed to an agency. You can either get scouted or you can apply yourself. And a lot of people don't know that it's so easy to apply because almost every agency has like an online submission that,
Hmm.
you just put your name, your age, your height, all your measurements, and then they just ask for simple digitals and like easy enough. Or they have an email that you can email them your information.
Hmm.
It's like, so that's what I tell people is just like, just take some really good digitals that really showcase you.
Hmm.
and then just like send them to a bunch of agencies,
Yeah,
if
it's
if
actually
not all the agencies.
and if you follow them on Instagram or whatever it might be, they actually announce sometimes when they're looking. So they'll say
Yeah,
open for
exactly.
submissions, and you can just submit.
Hmm.
Um, so a lot of people in LA or that we know, they'll do either the fashion weeks or they'll do like this model experience, which I'm so on because there's a cost to it. So I'm
Yeah.
anything that has a cost, I'm a sort of because you can do this yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of
Um,
like scam whenever.
all right, good for you. Because I'm sort of
Yeah.
like you could do this yourself, so
Mhm.
why pay for it and then get your
Mhm.
and apparently part of it is you have to get friends to but in terms of training and experience, so there's sometimes some people do a fashion week, some people will do model experience. I think you did the Coca Rocha Modeling Camp, things like that. Do you want to talk
Yeah, I
about
did.
any of those things?
I mean, I did the Coca Rocha camp when I was already like a year and a half deep into the modeling,
Hmm.
and that is out of your own pocket. And for me personally, and for all of my model friends that have asked me how that went, I I kind of say if you're already modeling, you don't need to do it,
All right. Hmm.
because the camp and the education is very much geared towards people that want to model
Hmm.
versus people that are already modeling. Because so yeah, there's the pose class and the runway class. The runway class is kind of, for me personally, was kind of like eh, but the pose class was really great.
Hmm.
Um,
So
and
actually,
then
what was great about the pose class?
she very much wants you to like step out of your comfort zone. She like
Right.
pushes you to step out of your comfort zone. She
Hmm.
doesn't want to see pretty, she doesn't want to see like normal, the typical poses that everyone can do. She wants to
Right.
see like you know Coca Rocha, she's like
Yeah.
really known for like her,
She's great.
that
I mean, she's amazing. Yeah.
the crazy expressions and the like how she poses and all that. So I think that's what was amazing about the pose class. And then on top of that, there's workshops
Hmm.
with either her or her husband James is like her like business partner in crime.
Hmm.
Um
Okay.
and so they like both lead workshops where they like tell you about, the like modeling 101 basically. But
Hmm.
for me personally, it was kind of just like hours of them just tell like talking about things that I already knew from
Right.
just
Because
working already.
you've been in
Yeah.
the industry.
Yeah.
So
So
let me ask this. So was it 2 days?
I think it was three. It was
Oh,
like
it was three
3 days,
days.
2 nights, something like
Okay.
that.
And so breaking down the itinerary were the first 1 or 2 days about the business, how long was the pose class and how long was the those kinds of classes. So
So each class was around 2 hours.
okay.
So like I think there would be like three classes a day. So like two workshops and then a pose class. And the next day was two workshops and then the runway class. And then the third day was the shoot day.
Hmm.
Uh
So
but
probably
yeah,
you would say that maybe the shoot day and the 2 hours of the pose and the runway were the most useful, really, and the others
yeah.
was more business kind of thing.
Hmm.
Okay. For me, it
But
always
it
helped.
definitely,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh sorry. Definitely if you're someone that wants to get into modeling, I feel like, and you're willing to spend the money. I don't remember on the top of my head how much it costs, but you do have to pay for your own flight, and it is like a couple G's. It's
Okay. And you have
pretty
to pay
pricey.
for uh staying there, right? So I mean,
Oh
hotel or
no,
whatever.
no, no, no. The
Oh,
hotel's provided because the
okay.
hotel is where the camp takes place.
I see.
So you just have to, pay that fee and then pay for your flight. Those are like
Okay. And
the
that's somewhere
things.
like outside of New York City, right?
Yeah, it's not in New York City.
Okay. So so I often think about this, because I mean, I shoot a lot of models, especially beginner models for testing for agencies and things like that. And yes, I always try to get them out of their shell. It's always very hard, so people, it's not something they're used to. But in terms of training, I often think that it's a lot of you can do yourself, but
Hmm.
people end up doing all these other things. So what do you suggest in terms of training and learning and these kinds of things?
For me, obviously, I had all of that experience doing the test shoots even before I was modeling. So I was
Uh-huh.
already very comfortable in front of a camera, and I was fortunate to connect with photographers that kind of helped me pose. So like my first few test shoots, you know, I was very much like a baby. Like
Hmm.
I still feel like now I'm still a baby, like, you know, because you can still learn. Like it's
Hmm.
you're constantly learning. I don't want to be here and be like, yes, I'm this experienced model. No one, no one tells me what I need to do, you know? Like I sure even the most high fashion models, they still get notes and critiques and all that, you
Oh, I'm
know?
sure. Yeah.
Um, but I did get that test shooting experience and to get comfortable in front of the camera and photographers helping me how to pose. And then another thing is it sounds very awkward, but you have to get used to looking at yourself. It's just like looking in a mirror and just kind of seeing what looks best
Right. Right.
because you know your own face the best. So
Hmm.
just to like what I would do is just like look in the mirror and like practice posing in a mirror essentially
Yeah. No,
is
I think
also
that's
what I
good.
would do. Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of um I'm probably tougher than you because I would say, a lot of people know their faces just from like, the bathroom selfie, right?
Hmm.
But then a lot of models don't know their bodies,
Yeah.
the angles of their bodies, right? And then the other thing is a lot of models don't always know how to work in a different environment or different clothes. So
Hmm.
the classic thing is like, I'll put a suit on a model and they'll sort of grip it like this. I'm like, you don't want to do that to the client's clothes,
Yeah.
so things like that. So there's a bunch of things they could do, but a lot of they could do themselves, right?
Hmm.
So let me ask you this: what's next? I mean, either in terms of growth or training or what things you want to do, or shoots you want to do. What do you look when you're looking forward? What are you thinking about?
Definitely right now, I feel like I'm kind of because mainly what I do is beauty. That's like a
Mhm.
lot of the work I was kind of doing. And then my dream forever was to do bridal. And then, you know, I don't know if you saw, but I had like this huge bridal job with Disney. It just came
This
out
was
on
just this.
Friday.
Was it last weekend or was it?
It was on, we shot the job last weekend and then it came out this Friday. Because
Oh,
it's
great!
Disney. They have like a very high turnaround rate. They have the
Yeah,
budget for it. So
they have a bunch of slaves working all night. I
yeah,
know that for
yeah,
sure.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of a dream come true. And you
That's
kind of
great.
you need to have a certain look for bridal. You kind of have to look more mature. Cause so that was kind of the moment when I thought, okay, my look is kind of like developing a little more into this more mature model.
Well, I assume that's
Um,
because you're likely to be a little older when you actually get married, right? I assume that's
mm,
the reason for it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I saw some of the pictures, so that's great. And there'll
Mhm.
be more, I assume, right?
I don't know. We'll see. The
Okay.
ones I posted were the ones they gave me, but it's one of those things. That's another thing we learned at the camp is um when it comes down to it for your book, you do not need like hundreds of photos from the same shoot, you know?
Hmm.
Like you only need like those two or three good photos. So, and editing takes a long time. So
Yes, I
you
know.
cannot, yes, you cannot expect to get hundreds of edited photos from photographers, you know? It's like you're good if you can get like you're lucky if you can get 5 to 10 great edited photos from a photographer because it's a hard ask to ask for any more edited photos than that.
Good for you. I know that many
Yeah.
do not understand this. Although I would say this is I always encourage models to, and just to do a plug for
Hmm.
photographers, is that I encourage models to post as many as they can on Instagram or things like that. You may
Yeah.
not need it for your book, but you can
Hmm.
always use it as some kind of advertising, right? So
Exactly. Hmm.
yeah. Anything else that you're looking to do or would love to do or is on the dream to-do list?
Um, kind of dipping my toes into acting. I mean, we talked about this,
Yes, yes.
and
Go girl.
I can't say anything right now, but I'm like in the works of talking to like a management talent type agency, and that's kind of like, you know,
I'll ask you offline.
yeah, just a little sneak peek, like a little sneak peek, but I can't talk much about it now. But yeah, looking for other agencies and all that, and just kind of like I'm ready for my next step for
Okay.
modeling and to step into the acting as well. So,
I always think, I mean, models should definitely take advantage of, commercials and acting because why? I mean, you're already in the biz, if you will, and
mhm,
then why deny yourself those markets? Because, they will look for models for
yeah,
certain projects and things like that. And, if you take some classes and learn the stuff and get used to video, which TikTok is all video these days, and so you can, that alone is practice, I think, for a lot of
Hmm.
video stuff. um I tell people when they want to get into acting that, like, just talk into the phone every day, talk to your fans about what you did, and that'll
Hmm.
get you used to talking to a camera, because that's part of it, is talking to the camera is kind of very hard for people if they're not used to it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff you can do. um Great. So this is an odd question for a guy, but I'm sure, like, a lot of women or models who are interested want to know about your beauty routine, your diet routine, any of that stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they must ask you that all day. So you
So,
want
I mean, right now I have a very high metabolism. Like, I'm not gonna lie and be like, I worked really hard for this, like
to
I naturally have a very high metabolism just because I was so active and I was younger. I grew up a runner.
hmm
So I have like genetically a high metabolism as well as like the metabolism I built being a runner for so long and being active when I was younger. But now I strength train. I try to go like 3, 4 times a week. Um, I haven't for like the past month, but that's what I try to do when I do get in those
we
routines.
won't tell anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And also for diet, for me, I love food. Like, I
Mhm.
like do not it's a pretty healthy balance because I don't deny myself my cravings because I'm not about to have like a bad relationship with food. So I don't deny myself any of my cravings, but I also make sure to be mindful of like not too much processed food, not too much sugar, and also it's really hard, but try not to eat the dairy. But it's really hard because I love butter, I love ice cream.
Those
Oh,
are great. The best things in the world.
I know, but it's
You
just
know,
not good for your skin. That's that's the thing. But just having a healthy balance of like things that are good for your body and like things that are good for your soul. Like that's what I like to say.
right? That's great.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, it's good to hear your thoughts on that. So,
Hmm.
um, and so, what do you do in your, like, off time when you're not doing all these things? What do you like to do?
I'm
Um,
I'm
what?
working every single day. If it's not modeling, I do have two other jobs. I work at an accounting office and I also work at a marketing agency.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very much, I get it from my mom, like work, work, work all the time. If I have a day off, I'm like, what can I do to like put myself forward, basically? Like, I get mad at myself if I have a day off because I'm like, I'm wasting my life. I'm not doing anything. So, yeah, no
Hey,
days off for me.
I'm like that too, and my parents were like that too. So maybe
Yeah,
it's an Asian thing. Who knows? I don't know, but
yeah.
I totally understand it.
Hmm. So no days off for me.
Ah, see, okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of workaholic too, so
Hmm.
and it is Sunday morning, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to mention, you've often sort of said, so I would say she's one of the most down to earth models I know, which is
Oh,
great. There you go. Am I embarrassing you? Can
yeah.
I? It's too bad we can't see red on this thing because it's like the
I
definition's not
know.
that great. And you've sometimes said like you feel like you're really a goof as opposed to a
Oh,
Hollywood
yeah.
girl, if you will, and things like that. So and I've seen you be shy at moments.
Hmm.
So talk about that, and how you how if you've trained yourself or adapt yourself to being in front of camera or being more outgoing, or like like you learned in the Coca Rocha Camp, like uh being more outgoing or bringing out more parts of yourself. And
Hmm.
something we didn't talk about here, but we talked about before, is also once you start in pageants and things like that, the modeling world is very different. They want you to be more yourself. They want you to be more
Hmm.
raw, more real. So if you want to talk for just a few minutes about that, that might be great for people to hear about.
Yeah, I think the number one biggest like tip to get comfortable and more outgoing in front of the camera is really forming those genuine connections with the people outside the camera.
Hmm.
Say if it's like the photographer, because you want to be comfortable in front of the photographer, because if you're not
Yeah.
comfortable with the photographer, that's going to show in the photos like
Hmm.
right away. And also, if it's a job, forming those connections with the makeup artist, the hair artist, the producer, just really like kind of getting comfortable with the team so that when it comes down to actually working and being in front of the camera, like you have nothing to worry about. You're like comfortable with everyone and you're good to go. So I think that's my biggest advice and for that.
No, that's great. I agree with that. One thing I do whenever I'm on set as an actor is I actually don't sit in a trailer. I try to get out and be on set.
Yeah,
So by the time I'm
exactly.
actually in front of the camera, because once you know, like if you go out from your trailer to set when they call you, and then you get right on set and you're in front of the camera, you're looking around like, oh, I didn't see that before, you know, and it's very
Hmm.
distracting. And you know, you've
Yeah.
met the people, so um, okay, great. That was wonderful. So thanks for all your thoughts. I think we're about to end time here. Where can people find out more about you?
So you can find out more about me. I post quite a bit on Instagram, especially my stories. My handle is at Seangthea, Seangthea. I'm sure Ming will put it up and put it in the
For
bio and
visual people
whatnot.
like me, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm a visual person too. So like I need to see it or else I'm not gonna, you know. And also I am on TikTok at MSSEA at Miss C. If you want to see like I have no filter on there. It's very much like my authentic, fully like versus Instagram, I think a little bit before I post, you know, but like TikTok I do not. I just post. So
Oh, okay.
if you want to see more of that like really authentic raw side of me, there's TikTok
I'm sure
for
they
that.
do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then dabbling into YouTube. You can find that in my bios on my Instagram and my TikTok. I only have one video, but
Okay.
um
Well, this
yeah.
will also be on YouTube, so there'll
Mhm.
be a little bit more soon.
Yeah.
All right, so it's I think we're about time, but thank you very much. It was great having you. It was a pleasure. And as you said, please look up C on all her TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great morning.
thank you so much. You as well. Bye.
Bye.